Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life podcast. Terry DuPont is the founder of DuPont Advisory Group, a group dedicated to providing comprehensive services to successful business owners, medical, and other professionals. Terry has top-of-the-table status in the prestigious International $1 Million Roundtable, placing him among the top 0.1% of all professional financial advisors in the world. Terry's philosophy is, I've learned that I grow and prosper more by focusing on the success of others, rather than fretting over my own. Terry is a certified financial professional with the Institute of Financial Wellness, an advisor for the Power of Zero Taxes in Retirement, chartered retirement plans specialist, certified wealth preservation planner, and certified philanthropic developer. On the podcast, Terry brings together experts in their field who have succeeded in building their business to share their secrets with you. And now, here's your host, Terry DuPont.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's podcast of Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. And I'm your host, Terry DuPont. Today, we're honored and privileged to have Aaron Kaplan with us. Aaron is a partner with Taft Law in Cincinnati, and Aaron specializes in estate planning and everything that goes with it. So, Aaron, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me on, Terry.
Yeah, I mean, we should have some fun here this morning. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Aaron, and why you started your career?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks again for having me on today. It's a privilege to be here. I did know I wanted to be a lawyer, just kind of growing up and all of that. My dad was a lawyer. He had a fantastic law career, retired now, happily retired. And what I didn't know was what area of law I wanted to be involved in. Didn't really have a strong commitment to either litigation or anything transactional. When I went to law school, I sort of figured the one thing I was most drawn to was the idea of practicing law in my hometown. I'm from Cincinnati. I wanted to practice in Cincinnati and serve clients in that area. And so when I got a summer clerkship with Taft, where I eventually did stay and become a partner, I came into it not really being focused on the area and being really open to a lot of options, which I think served me well. I remember the firm had a kind of a questionnaire that they would have people fill out and ask a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds what they wanted to focus on for the rest of their life. And I thought I would be pretty broad in that. I selected a lot of different possibilities. And what happened was the estate planning group, we call it private client at Taft, the private client attorneys, they got very excited that one of the young folks was interested in their group, right? And so I got to meet them and really found them to be wonderful people. And that was an area, estate planning is a great area where a clerk or a young attorney who's not already an expert in the area can be invited into client meetings and other types of kind of in-person opportunities to get a sense of the area. And so I did that a few different times. And what I really noticed was, first of all, the people that were doing this type of work at Taft were phenomenal, just great human beings. And also the clients seemed pleasant. They seemed very happy to be talking to their lawyers. I love our divorce lawyers, but those clients don't really want to be talking to their lawyer. But our private client lawyers, they seemed happy. They seemed like they really enjoyed their clients. And I noticed that in that area right away, the younger lawyers were one-on-one with clients. They were building their relationships that would turn into longer term, client relationships. Ultimately, they were kind of building their own businesses. Where a lot of the other first and second year lawyers at the firm, they were doing great stuff, and we need all of those departments, but a lot of times they were the third, fourth, fifth lawyers on a case. And even though that's great experience, and I did get to do some of that, fortunately, and it's useful. I love the idea of the one-on-one being the primary, and the really doing a ton of client contact off the bat. So I got interested in the area from that summer experience. I came back, did a second summer with Taft that was a little bit more focused. The first summer I did everything, and that was fun too. And I was able to start as an associate in estate planning and private client, where fortunately there was an opening at the time, and it worked out. Had great mentors and was able to just kind of start building the business from that starting point.
Okay, great, great. Um, what was your biggest challenge getting started?
Say the biggest challenge was taking those things that I was really excited about, and yeah, and the things I really kind of wanted to get out of my law practice, and applying that to the big firm environment. I loved the practice area from the jump. I still do. Um, but not all, Taft is a big firm. It was a big firm in Cincinnati when I started. It's now a big firm, nationwide. We're in the Am Law 100, biggest law firms and all of that, which wasn't true when I started. And a lot of the firms of our size don't even have an estate planning group. They think of that as kind of an area that's more suited to smaller firms and boutiques and all of that. And I think one main reason for that is big firms have really big billable hour goals. The economics kind of tilt that way. It's bet the company litigation. It's Fortune 500 company work, that sort of thing. And it can be hard to kind of stand out in that area, with those types of peers, in an outstanding firm when doing private client work. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm doing wills and trusts and powers of attorney and things like that for people in Cincinnati, Ohio. So, I think just kind of making my practice area and the business that I was kind of building personally work as part of a large law firm was what I'd say be the biggest one.
Okay, okay, excellent. Um, how did you become such a specialist or expert in the estate planning uh, realm?
Well, I think it's a lifelong process. It's there's some real luminaries in the field, and the good estate planning lawyers always want to hear those people speak, and see what they're arguing and proposing and all of that. But I think in terms of becoming an expert and kind of reaching the level you need um, to be successful in this area, it's about learning from the best. I had wonderful mentors, still do, but wonderful mentors at the firm. People who really brought me under their wing, and with different styles. I had one. It really kind of two main mentors, one who had a litigation background and, was able to kind of keep me focused on, the not that we were so aggressive in our tax positions. I really don't think we are, but keep me focused on that kind of sharp. This is a big firm. We need to be on it. All the time. Kind of building that aspect and the substantive knowledge I needed in the practice area. And I had another mentor who I thought was, just somebody who was. I would think of as a gentleman, the best of what a country lawyer could be, even though he was in the city, right? The Just somebody who his family had been lawyers for a long time. That the amount of gentility, the ability to have the long-standing relationships with clients that they really just loved and valued him. And I was able to kind of learn from both of those perspectives as well as some others in the firm. Estate planning is a great area for cross-selling, right? So there's I got to meet and work with a lot of other other partners in other areas, and kind of learn from their approaches as well. So that type of mentorship, I think, really was instrumental in helping me find my way.
Right. Okay. Okay. I did some reading before we uh, got on, and I noticed that you're extremely involved in various committees and organizations. And so my question is, how has your engagement with the Cincinnati Bar Association's estate planning and probate committee shaped your approach to client service and estate planning?
I think yeah, it's been important. I think dealing with working with other lawyers in the field, in that that context, I think is a really good way to um, build relationships, build expertise, all of that. Was able to be the president of the chair of the section for the Cincinnati Bar Association for a couple of years. That was really a good way to build skills, to build um, kind of the ability to focus on what other lawyers in the area were thinking about and and worried about. We put on a lot of seminars and things like that, and when you do that, it's not just event planning. It's what do people want to go to, what do people find interesting and important, and how do we make that work, and how do we make it timely, and all of that. Always found it interesting to have the people who work professionally for the bar association come to me on a practice area issue as well. So that's I do think it's useful. The other thing I think with organizations is, when you start out, if you're in a big firm or if you've got a good network, there's people who will push you in certain areas. We need somebody to replace somebody else on a board, or something along those lines. And I was always happy to do that. I think people should be happy to do that. But as you get a little bit farther along, it's good to be focused a little bit more on what do you want to do. What feels like it has an impact, for what do you feel like has an impact for you personally and professionally? Is this something you're doing to build business? Is this something you're doing because it feels like you're giving back?
Mhm.
So that's I think that kind of pivot point is something to keep an eye on also.
Okay. Okay. Uh, as a member of the planning committee for the Cincinnati Bar Association's annual Advanced State Planning Seminar, what key insights or trends have you observed in the field recently that are impacting how you advise your clients?
Yeah, so it's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, I think I came into the field in 2010. That was my first year as a full-time lawyer. And in 2010 was the year that there was no estate tax, right? There was one year when it was repealed, which people thought would never happen. There were very lucky people who died in that year, like George Steinbrenner. There was
His
all kinds.
plan that any better?
He could not have planned that any better. And I even though I'm from Cincinnati, my mom's from Boston. We have family in Boston. I grew up rooting for the Red Sox, so I hated Steinbrenner. I felt like it
Yeah.
was so unfair when he got lucky and died in 2010. But um, the estate tax has gone up and down. Or is threatened to go down. It's never actually the threshold from exemption from estate tax has never actually gone down, but there's always been threats that it will. It's changed so many times. 2010 there was that one really strange year. The Bush tax cuts were extended. There was another raise in the exemption amount from estate taxes. Over time the threshold has grown so that the people who were doing this work in the 90s were telling people, well, the estate tax will hit at $600,000, and so that's going to hit your life insurance, it's going to hit your retirement, it's going to hit your house, all of that. Now we're up to an exemption of over $13 million. There's a portability.
Where,
um Yeah, right, per person, 13 million per person, and it used to be that married couples couldn't take it with them, right? One spouse passes away and didn't have much of an estate of their own, they lose that exemption. And now it's there's this portability concept in the tax law where you can file an estate tax return for the first deceased spouse's estate and add extra unused exemption of the surviving spouse's estate. And basically that allows doubling that 13 million to 26 for a married couple, right? And so at the same time, now we've got a threat that the exemptions are going to go down at the end of 2025. That the estate tax law was tied to the Trump tax bill of 2017. And so there's a sunset on that with Senate rules. And so um, I think if you take it back to, seminar planning and things like that, people have always been very focused on what's going to happen next in the estate tax world. Are we going to continue to see high thresholds for exemption? Are we going to see them cut it? If they cut it, is there going to be, a clawback of old gifts that were made under valid tax law at the time? Is there going to be, what it the estate tax and the gift tax have not always been unified, right? There used to be differences in that. They're unified now. Will that stay, together forever? Who knows? My firm's got a Washington, D.C. office now, which we didn't used to have. And so we've got, people on the ground there, listening, trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, there's a lot of politics involved. But I feel like it's what people want to hear about is what changes in the law have been made recently and what changes are coming down the pike. They're not as focused on what's on what happened years ago.
Yeah, in my business, we have a virtual family office where we work in areas of tax reduction planning, risk mitigation, financial management, estate planning, and business consulting. And so, what you just brought up, I have a keen interest in, and so
Mhm.
I'd like to get your opinion, if I could, your gut feeling, if nothing else, about what you think is going to happen because we've got the sunset provision and the Trump tax bill, which if nothing is done to that, all they have to do is nothing, and taxes go up, and the exclusion comes down. Okay, um, and with all of the national debt that's out of control, and the fact that come 2030, we will only be able to pay the national or the interest on our national debt with all of our revenues. What is your gut feeling that's going to happen to estate taxes?
It's a great question. It's the if you look at the fiscal situation of the country, and I'm not trying to be political here, but the fiscal situation seems nothing short of unsustainable. I mean, we were on an unsustainable track in terms of projected spending with Medicare and Social Security and everything else for many years. Now interest rates are a lot higher, and when interest rates are a lot higher, that means the federal government is paying out way more interest on its debt, right? I mean, the Treasury did not take advantage of an opportunity with very low interest rates for a very long time to sell lots of 30-year bonds or even longer than that, and kind of convert all that long-term debt that the U.S. has always had to a low fixed rate. What they're doing now is they're rolling over old 0 to 2% bonds and notes and all of that, and they're reissuing them at 5% and up. And it's just and that means federal interest expense is just going out of control. And even though a lot of the economic numbers look good, if you look at the GDP statistics and unemployment and all of that, tax receipts are actually really, really trailing expectations right now. And so the gap really seems to be growing. It also seems to be the case that while in the past Republicans talked a heck of a lot about reducing spending, that doesn't seem to be the focus of the Republican Party Party these days, and the Democratic Party used to have some people who would consider themselves kind of, fiscally conservative,
Right.
even if not so on the social end of things. And I don't think that's, necessarily the case either. So again, I'm not trying to make it a political thing, but it seems like the spending track is really unsustainable, and going after additional tax revenue in estate tax and related areas, that seems one of the few politically possible ways to get revenues. So if you take that as kind of a background and combine it with um, the fact that if Congress does nothing, taxes will go up. And you add the polarization and the fact that it's hard to agree on everything. We have, government shutdown possibilities all the time. It
And they're
seems
pretty
like
good at doing nothing.
they seem great at doing nothing, right? It seems like every Congress is, the most do nothing Congress since, 1940 something. And so, you put all that together, it just seems like the odds are that, the estate tax is going to go up, and, or really the exemption would go down, because that's what would happen if nothing is settled. At the same time, the 2024 elections are coming, and, who knows that, either side could have full control of the White House and both houses of Congress. So we really don't know, but when you don't know, that creates a planning opportunity. So that's what we're talking to our clients about.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. What is something that you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
I'd say in terms of something I wish I know now, it's the I I used to think that there was a real difference between being a professional and being in business. And there's that doctors and lawyers and certain other professionals, they don't think necessarily in the same business terms. I mean, I was young and naive, but I also think that the economics have changed in all of these industries. If the healthcare consolidation, right? Doctors' practices used to be independent. Our firm used to represent a ton of them. We still got a few. Now a lot of them are working for the big hospitals, right? Law firms, there's been so much consolidation. Taft has always been on the acquiring end, or the merger of equals end of a combination, which I think is great. But it's been very successful. But the feel is different, right? And it's not my firm. It's the industry as a whole. It used to be lawyers would stick with one firm for their whole career. It's what I knew growing up as the son of a lawyer. It's what I just expected out of that and out of inertia. Um, and I have stuck around. But it's you can't fail to notice how many lawyers move, right? So, but nobody wants a lawyer who's moving around who doesn't have the economic numbers for their own personal practice to support it, right? And firms don't want to keep somebody around who's in that situation. So, um, I didn't realize I didn't realize that the economics of being in a law firm, of building your own business, sort of with other lawyers as part of a law firm. I didn't realize that it was what it was, right? And they don't teach you that in law school. There's no class on the economics of being an attorney. At least there wasn't at Georgetown. So um, maybe it's some of the smaller or more local schools that do a better job of that, because some of their graduates come out with a much keener understanding of how to build a business than did a lot of the people who I came out with who went to big firms.
Okay, good, good. Um, what is something that you share or would like to share with each and every client that you have, from an advice standpoint, a tip or whatever?
It's a good question. When I meet a new client, what I'm always focused on, first of all, is building the rapport. Uh, it's an interesting situation with an estate planning client. It's it's an allied industry to yours. We work with some of the same types of clients. But it's always interesting, that first meeting, because when you haven't talked to these clients before, you don't know them, you go very quickly from hello to what are the family secrets, right? And that's not something that people typically get to when they first meet somebody. And so, I don't walk into a first meeting going, I need to scare these people about the estate tax, or I need to impress the urgency upon them, or whatever. I could probably do a better job of some of these things, but my approach has always been, you start with the rapport. um you start with building the basics for a working relationship where they're going to trust the advice that I give them, and they're going to value that. Um and then and I need at the same time to get to know these clients and what makes them tick, right? I mean, the same exact estate planning situation, in terms of assets and liabilities, and who's in the family and all of that, can look very different to different people because of their different values and different approaches, to what they want to do and what seems fair to them. So I really got to get to know the clients and what their values are. Um, I feel like that's a good way to build a foundation for a useful, long-term client relationship. I think if I focus too much on being I'm the gatekeeper to this set of legal documents that you need, I think the natural response to that is, well, I can get those online, right? It's very easy to find, forms that will work, that have the rights, they're the right formalities for a will in Ohio, right? For example. So I've got to be better than that. I've got to be able to provide advice that they can't replicate by asking Google. So that's really what I like to focus that beginning relationship on. If it goes longer term, which one of the great things about moving from that young to closer to mid-career, is being able to see the same clients come back in 10 years later, right? And be different people dealing with different circumstances. And I want to have built that foundation with them. Hopefully they've got some interesting stuff to going on, and I can help them with their legal issues. But I don't want to be known as the guy who, just opened the key to the lockbox and brought out the files, right? I want to be the guy that's relied on for for the everything that's going on in their lives, and everything that comes up.
Gotcha. Um, from dynasty trust to business succession planning, it seems like you cover a wide array of estate planning needs. How do you approach tailoring your expertise to suit the individual needs of such a diverse clientele, from families to small businesses?
It's another great question. I think every client is different. It's actually one of the things I love most about the practice area, that I've had clients from literally ages 18 to 99, right? And I've got they've all been interesting, right? I mean, the 18 I've had a lot of 18-year-olds, because a lot of times parents will send their when they're going to send their kids off to college, they'll want to get things like a healthcare power of attorney done, so that they could get access to the adult child's medical records at college and things like that if necessary, and be able to step in and help them if necessary. Maybe a financial power of attorney to do things like home banking. A CD rolls over and somebody needs to go down to the bank while the kids at college. We do recommend that people do that. So we get 18-year-olds, for that. One of the first meetings I had was as a summer associate was, I was not the active, participant there. I was observing, but parents brought their 18-year-old in to sign these documents, and the meeting took forever because he kept asking, well, what is a living will? Well, what does that mean? Well, what could happen? Well, what if I don't trust the doctor? All kinds of things. It's fascinating. a 99-year-old client, literally 99, meeting him at the retirement home. And he's telling me about all the things he wants to give away. And this guy was perfect, perfect mental acuity, and no doubts about that. But he wanted to physically show me, here's this watch I want to give away, right? Except one of the things he wanted to give away was a pistol, right? And so he's walking over with shaking hands, showing me this pistol, shaking it at me, right? And I'm like, I'm not sure this is allowed in this building, right? But
You're safe.
right, exactly, right. It was pretty crazy, but but every client is just so different, and so when you get back to here's a dynasty trust situation, here's a business succession planning type of situation. um the somebody who needs a dynasty trust, that's going to be a lot of times the older generation, grandparents. They're dealing with multiple generations of a family. They're looking to deal with long-term asset protection, right? They're thinking, how do I make sure um, that what I've built up is available not only to my children but also my grandchildren, and how do we do that tax efficiently, and maybe putting that onto a great grandchild generation, and and then how's the money going to be used, education, healthcare, all these things. There's a lot to go through. I love dealing with these business succession planning clients because one of the great things I got to do, again, mentorship and all of that. The woman who was running this department until retiring recently, and I learned a ton from her. She would intentionally take me along to meetings and pair me up with her on a matter where she would work with the senior um, generation of the family business, and I would work with the junior generation of the family business. So I was working with people my own age.
Mhm.
When I was doing that when I was 26, right? But the 26-year-old I was talking to was going to inherit a multi-million dollar industrial operation, right? Not he was not a typical 26-year-old. And so now I'm talking to these same people 10, 12 years later, right? And they're mature, and they're married with kids of their own now, and a lot of times they are running the business themselves, and all of that. And so I was able to kind of get a good sense of what it looks like from the younger generation point of view. And now I'm doing it for the older generation too, right? I'm the primary on that. So the experience of being able to um being able to go back and draw on some of those experiences, really helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know you're helping clients with a range of needs from basic wills to complex estate planning. How do you adopt your approach to suit the varying complexities of your clients' situations while ensuring clarity and understanding throughout the entire process?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's it's that's another area where I feel like it's really useful to have a department like this in a big law firm, because we can scale up and scale down, based on client needs. And we've got complicated, multi-generational, business succession planning, estate planning, tax planning, all of that. We can bring in everybody we need. um it's amazing to have access to the kind of professionals that we have, the kind of expertise that we have across different practice areas. I can get a very quick answer on a real estate question, or a tax question, or whatever may come up. Um but at the same time, I really do not want to ever lose sight of just the ability and my desire to help regular people, just dealing with the kinds of assets they accumulate in a typical life, right? And helping them with the decisions for how to pass those on and how to protect themselves in case of incapacity later in life and things like that. I feel like that's just a necessary and useful thing to do as a as a lawyer. I feel good doing it, and I want to do that myself. And if we need in order to make the economics work, for that, that type of client, bring in somebody else to do drafting for me, or do any kind of automation. There's all kinds of great document assembly, document production type systems now. We want to make use of those types of tools in order to be able to serve this wide range of clients, right? I think I've always thought, just from a business, both from a business planning point of view, and from, just kind of personal desire, I do want to help regular people. I don't want to be thought of as somebody who's too expensive unless you've got $25-30 million, right? Or you don't need him unless you've got that kind of money, because first of all, I'm practicing in Cincinnati, right? I'm not in Silicon Valley. I'm not in Miami, New York, whatever. But also, most of those people already have attorneys, right?
Right.
I think, I love the ability to work on matters for, the high end, ultra high net worth client that Taft has. I mean, it's great. I wouldn't have gotten to work on those types of matters as early as I did if I wasn't at a firm like Taft, and wouldn't have been able to build expertise in those types of matters, outside of a firm like Taft. But but I don't but I don't want to be in a situation where if I lose one or two clients, then my business goes south,
Gotcha.
right? I don't want them making up too high a percentage of what I do anyway. Um, so it's always a balance, but I like it, and I feel like it adds variety to the day, and helps things from getting too boring to constantly be cycling back and forth through different families, different needs, different circumstances.
Gotcha. Um, Aaron, what's a mistake that many people make in your mind that's hard to undo as it relates to estate planning, asset planning, etc.?
There- there's a lot, right? There's a lot of mistakes out there. I think, and our fiduciary litigation group, which does, will contests and things like that, is always busy from all kinds of mistakes. And what I always hope is they stay busy, and that none of the mistakes are from our own work, right? But I feel like the one thing that jumps out at me most is the is starting planning too late. There are a lot of people out there, who, for one reason or another, just kind of never get around to estate planning, and then they when they call us, either there's already an issue with capacity to sign documents, which is a problem. It's either we're not going to be able to help without some kind of guardianship, or something like that, or we will, but it's going to be more expensive, and more of an arduous process in order to confirm that we can help in that situation. Um, there's that type of delay. There's the business owner's sense that he or she is immortal, and will never ever need to make use of estate planning documents, right? There's that issue. And then I think there's also a misconception out there that estate planning is for the rich, right? And trusts are for the ultra wealthy and things like that. It's only people who belong on shows like Succession and things like that who have to worry about this stuff. And it's not true, right? I mean, there's people, there's people all over the place who they don't think of themselves as needing really much of anything in terms of estate planning. But if something happened to them unexpectedly, who would have custody of the children? Who would, uh, you know, w- what would happen to money that goes to kids, but the kids are 7 years old and 5 years old, right? And they can't handle it themselves. What about dropping a bunch of money on an 18-year-old who is legally able in most states to, to contract and, otherwise handle that money, but it may not be a good idea for it to be unrestricted at that age. Right. There's all kinds of things that happen. And so sometimes the cases that our firm gets are, the result of a tragedy. And you can't necessarily predict a tragedy, but you can have planned and have estate documents in the vault, right? That would at least take care of the family if something tragic happens. So a lot of times it's the absence of planning or too long a delay in planning that I think is the big problem.
Okay. Makes sense. How do you define success, Aaron?
It's a fantastic question. It's I I think I think of it in a couple of different ways. I feel successful having been elected as a partner in Taft back in 2018. That felt like a real achievement. To rise through the ranks at a firm like that's getting into the top 100 and continue to practice there and build business there and all of that. That's a measure of success. Obviously, the economic component of that. But I think another big part of success is the ability to balance a productive professional life with a rewarding personal life. And I've always felt that way. I mean, my dad was a lawyer in the days well before work from home and a lot of talk about work-life balance, right? But I saw a lot of them, and I knew I wanted to do the same with my kids. I'm a father of four, and with everything that's happened, since my kids were born, I was able to spend more time at home with them than I thought I would. Right? I mean, COVID is part of that, but also, Taft has a kind of an industry leading 4 month paternity leave policy, right? Mothers and fathers. We had triplets, in 2019.
Oh,
I was able to be home with along with my wife with them for 16 full weeks. I mean, how amazing was that? And that was before COVID. And so, I've always built my career with that in mind, the just wanting to be able to spend time, with my wife, with my kids, and fortunately, and not everybody has this, but I did have some support at work. I've mentioned one of my mentors at Taft, her name's Susan Wheatley. She's recently retired now. She told me when I was first starting, might even been when I was a summer associate, that I needed to stand up to people, including her if necessary, and set boundaries, because if I didn't set boundaries for myself, no one would do it for me. Right. And so I did things right, early on, even before before I had kids, like decide that I would always take the Jewish high holidays off. Right. I mean, I didn't go to school, on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, as a kid, as a young, as a law student, I didn't go. I took those days off from work. But if I thought at 25 or 26, I can't do that because, people won't be comfortable with it and, I'll get in trouble or whatever, I probably never would have started. Right. But, I set that for myself. I did it. It was fine. Right. So,
okay.
so anyway, I think sometimes just thinking about different definitions of success, really fruitful.
Yeah, I agree 100%. With the success that you've had since 2010, what do you say is your biggest challenge now?
I think it's just how uncertain the legal world works. Just like the legal world looks, going into the future, and I don't even think it's necessarily specific to our industry. I think it's all over the place. You just look at AI, you look at just how much people are able to get done on their own, just across industries. You've got people, it used to be, people would call their doctor with questions. Now they're calling their doctor to tell them what drugs they want to take, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, I've always, I've never agreed, I've never agreed with this, but I've always had to, when I talk to people about financial advisors, I've always had them tell me, well, why do I need one? Because can't I just buy the S&P 500? And I can tell it, and I say, well, let me recommend some people who can answer that for you, because you don't just want my answer, right? You want, but you can buy life insurance online. You can buy, you can do so much. There's all kinds of predictions out there about what what the future is going to look like. And so I think it's about being nimble. Everybody's staying on top of their games. And I do think being focused on the value of close relationships and valuable advice, personal advice that is highly customized and not something you can get, not something you can get anywhere or necessarily quantify. But lawyers are, again, this is not about politics, but pretty conservative oftentimes in their outlooks and temperaments. And I'm not someone who goes in search of change, right? It comes to everyone, but it is the great unknown. So we can all just try to prepare.
Okay. Well, we're going to kind of wind this down now, Aaron. And obviously, at the bottom of the screen, you've got your contact information, et cetera. Where can our audience go to learn more about you?
Yeah, so taftlaw.com. We have you can get to my my firm bio there. Lots of information about me there. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Aaron Kaplan, and you can just keep an eye out. Hopefully there'll be more of these opportunities. But please do, go to find me on LinkedIn or reach out. I can always happy to talk. And thanks again for having me, Terry. It's been a great conversation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Glad you're on. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. And I'm Terry DuPont, your host, and come back and join us next week for the next episode. And as it relates to estate planning and a lot of other things, remember, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Take care and see you again next week.
This has been the Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success podcast. If you have questions about creating tax-free wealth and income, forward-looking tax mitigation, strategic risk mitigation, wealth preservation and legacy planning, and advanced financial management, go to DuPontAdvisory.com or email terry@DuPontAdvisory.com.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.